All right, Patrick Rooney here. We are live, baby. We are going live, and I hope you guys like my intro. Thank you, Mind Over Energy. You got a new countdown, and I get excited over these little things. I'm kind of geeky with this stuff. But my wife had an idea, and it had to do with, I was working on the opening, and I was having trouble with the music and getting it to sync and whatever. And somehow she said something about the countdown and the music could somehow be together. So I decided, hey, why don't we just do a countdown and opening music in the same thing, kind of, and then I don't have to mess with opening music. So anyway, that was the idea. I hope you guys liked it. We are doing a special show tonight on conservative hypocrites. And Mind Over Energy is in the chat, and he is handling the chat duties. So thank you, Mind Over Energy, for that. And we have people in the chat already. Hello, Mr. Sandy LaFontaine. We are doing a show on conservative hypocrites. So I'm going to bring on a couple of my good friends. We're going to discuss this issue, and I think it's going to get very interesting. And let me introduce my friend, Robert Campbell. Hello, Robert. Hello. Robert is an artist and a writer and a very handy dude. He's a very multi-talented guy, very patriotic, and a good friend for a long time. And
good to see you. Good to see you.
Yes. And let me bring on Brian Pombo. Hey, Brian.
Hey there.
Hey, Brian's another good friend of mine, and Brian is brianjpombo.com is his website. Brian is a marketing, I almost said guru. I don't think you mind that term too much, hopefully. Marketing guy. He's an expert in marketing and business and positioning your business the right way and getting you to think about your business and making it make sense and having the right kind of business for you and the kind of business that fits you and also can actually make money. So those are two things that are very important to put together. So thanks for coming on, guys. I was talking with Robert. We talk a lot off air and we have very interesting conversations. And we were going to do a show on, maybe I could say, we're going to do a show on transhumanism part 2 and Elon Musk, because we got a lot of stuff about that. But we decided we were talking further, and somehow we got on the subject of conservative hypocrites. And we both were like, yeah, let's do a show on conservative hypocrites. So that's what we did. So first I was just going to talk to Robert. And then I remembered something that Brian had said somewhere along the line. Oh, Brian is interested in this topic too, and he might have something to say on this as well. So we're all going to have different opinions on this, and then the people in the chat are going to have different opinions. That's what's great about live video. So we already have chat people. Mr. Sandy LaFontaine said, could we say that Art Linkletter and its war on drugs would be an example of conservative hypocrites? Thank you, Mr. Sandy LaFontaine. I used to like Art Linkletter. That was the old days of TV. He was on when I was, I think, a kid in the 60s. You might go back to that a little bit, Brian, right? To Art Linkletter being on TV?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember, too. I'm just trying to connect to what she means there a little bit.
I don't know. It's not a she. It's actually a he. I read his thing as Mrs. Sandy LaFontaine, but it's actually a Mr. And I didn't want to misgender him or her or it. But it is a him. So just kidding. So let's get into this. I just want to throw out a few thoughts, and you guys can run with whatever. Okay. I've seen for a long time, I've had kind of a frustration with the conservative movement. The conservative movement as it stands, and by the way, we're going to get to you guys' chats. I'm going to try to be a little bit more strategic about my chats than I've been in the past. I'm going to try to hold the chats a little bit and then get to them at the end of certain segments. So, but the conservative movement, to me, has been totally brought together into the movement of money and corporations. And so what we see and know about conservatism is normally what we see on the radio, which has to be filtered through a lot of commercials. You can't say certain things on the radio and stay on the radio because you have a lot of advertisers, and advertisers are especially are notoriously skittish because generally a lot of times you have corporations maybe backing you if you have a really big show, and corporations are notoriously skittish. So what you end up with on radio, and probably everywhere for that matter, is something that is known as tribes. You have, if you turn on your radio at any given day, you'll hear maybe Sean Hannity come on in the afternoon. It used to be Rush Limbaugh, God rest his soul. Love Rush, and I like Sean too. And I used to know Sean when I used to work at Bond. I used to help book some. Jesse used to be my old boss. I used to book him on radio and TV shows. So I got to know Sean and different people along the way. So he's a nice guy, and I have nothing against Sean. But I will say that what's happened to some of these people over the years, I think they've gotten kind of jaded. They don't have the same spark that they used to have. And even when they had the spark, it seems to be about talking about the other guy all the time. If I'm a conservative, I'm going to get on the radio and tell you every day that Joe Biden has lost his marbles. Okay, well, we all kind of know that, first of all. And secondly, Joe Biden isn't running things. I have news for you. So what is the point of directing all your fire at a guy who's a figurehead? So what I've noticed about the conservative movement in general, and this includes everybody, including me, the conservative movement has a lot of hypocrisy in it, in the sense that it goes after somebody else. It's done for money sometimes in the corporate media, but it also is done just generally by it's human nature to not want to look at ourselves and look at other people. So we're constantly finding a boogeyman over here. Not that these people on the left are not bad in a lot of ways, they are. But there's always a way of finding things. In fact, I just saw a Tom McDonald, who's a rapper who I really like. He just came out with a new video today, and he was talking about this very issue in there, where they're separating us into tribes, and they're doing it more and more for the purposes of something else. And that something else seems to be evil, and all it does is get us angry, want to fight each other, and meanwhile, the same people that have always been running things continue to pull the strings. That's my opening salvo. Anybody want to take that? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. I agree. I mean, just in general, you have a situation, even the term conservative hypocrite, I think it can throw a lot of people off, because in a way we're all hypocrites in one way or another. Yes. I mean, just it's a human condition to be That's a hypocrite. Right. But specifically the way that you're talking about, or the way that I see it, I would agree that what it really comes down to is the basis of conservatism is a belief in reality and principles and a natural law that kind of guides us all.
Yes.
And if anything that we're doing that goes against that is going to be hypocritical.
Yes.
Both in our actions and in our rhetoric.
Right.
And the problem is that if you just we could take each different sector at a time, but if we just talk about the talking heads and the radio hosts and all the pundits, out there, that they get into the flow of needing to pay the bills.
Yes.
And part of paying the bills is getting people worked up. And so they find themselves in that trap. You could tell that a lot of these guys, they have to get themselves worked up to get everyone else worked up.
And they're burned out now.
A lot of them are burnt out. A lot of them find themselves in a loop. There's a lot of them that I see, they'll do stuff that is more effective or taking people in the right direction, and they'll be on that track for a while. And then they get thrown off of it for a while, and it's still an us versus them thing.
Yes.
And it's the same focus that I come across when dealing with business owners. They get caught up in the day-to-day chaos and the crisis of the moment, instead of saying, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? I'm on the radio, I'm on TV, I'm talking to people. What are we actually trying to accomplish? What do I want to achieve by the end of the month or the end of the year? Where are we going with this?
Hang on 1 second. Brian has asked, are you or your guests' mics off? As far as I know, all of our mics are on. They may be
we can hear each other.
Yeah. I hear you guys, maybe slightly low, but I hear you guys. So if anybody else having a problem with hearing us, let me know. I can hear them. Okay, so Mind Over Energy can hear them. Okay. Well, I'm going to continue, and then hopefully the mics are okay. Maybe it might be something on your chat, Brian. Finish up with that, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we can continue on with that idea, but I think we get too caught up in the moment and news of the day and making it all about, conservatives make liberals the problem. And like I was mentioning to you before, and I've mentioned on my podcast, liberals are not the problem. If you're truly a conservative, you have to realize that it's how we react to them. And if you've been around long enough, if you haven't, I can see how you can think that they're the problem. They're not really the problem. They've been the same way the whole time I've been involved in politics, and I've been involved since I was a teenager. The whole time, they've been exactly the same.
Yeah.
They have the same game plan. They function exactly the same. They play around with whether they're pretending to be liberal or not. Other than that, they're the same people they've always been. It's how we react to it that is causing all the trouble. And conservatives really are the problem.
I agree. And we're our own problem. Obviously, they're a problem. But we want to do something that we can control, right? I mean, you can't control what the other guy's doing. If the other person's a lunatic or even evil, which happens sometimes, there's a lot of evil out there. You can't control that unless you want to cast a demon out of them or something. That's on a whole nother level. But in general discourse, there's not much you can do about it. But what we can control is in here. And, there's that famous Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world kind of thing. I wish, I could put that on my forehead or my refrigerator because it really covers all the bases. Once you are being the change and you're looking out, we can get mad at everything. We can get outraged. The whole thing is already set up as an outrage game. When you turn on the radio, it's set up to outrage you. That's the whole point. Is they want to get entertainment, as you're saying, and they're going to outrage. And when I was a kid, my dad used to listen to the radio all the time, the news, the TV. He'd have the papers out. He'd have the whole thing. So I was listening to news about the Vietnam War when I was driving around the back of the station wagon when I was, a kid. So I'm kind of like know this stuff, and we're kind of like the TV and everything. The whole point is to get you to there until the next commercial. Whatever it is, that was the point of TV and radio, to get you there until the commercial comes on. If they can outrage you, that's the whole thing. So they get us overly thinking about politics. Not only are we thinking too much about politics, but at the same time, we know too little about how politics actually works. We don't even know how to get things done in politics, but all we know is generally how to complain about what the other side is doing. Robert, you haven't spoken yet. I want to give you a wide berth here. Go ahead.
I agree with, about the conservatives being weak and pathetic right now, and that's including myself. But it goes way back. It goes back, I must just say, at the beginning when we allowed abortion to take over, when we allowed the Bible to be taken out of school, the moral values and all that, where we was taught and raised the strong relationship of being good, morals, standing up for your country. But when they took all that software out the picture, then it was, they started feeding our children whatever they once put in their heads.
Yeah.
And so if you fast forward that to now, conservatives, they're a talking game, but they have no tools now to fight with, because my dad said, if you buy a gun for the home and if you're not willing to shoot back because the criminals will, then what's the point of having the gun? We allow them to step on us, but we don't step back with the same force back. And right now, all the conservatives, what I see the conservatives doing over the years is a lot of complaining, talking about what they're going to do, what they should do. And even like your news shows, they'll talk a good game, but they only go so far. They won't climb the fence and go all the way. And one of the reasons why Tucker is doing so well, he's literally Fox News. Tucker, he's literally Fox News. I don't even listen to anybody else because he says it like it is.
Yeah.
And the reason why they don't kick him off is because they're making them millions of money, and that's another thing that's in control, the money. And evil is in control here now. And we've allowed evil to get in the door, down the hallway, and in the living room, and it's hard to get it back out the door now.
Right. We used to talk about the parents, and the parents obviously are the most important, part of the child's life and the most influence. But what we don't talk about enough is even with parents there, who even sometimes can be halfway decent, if you put them in a school, you put them in a government school at the age of 5, 6, or you put them in daycare before that, and you let them get stuff all day long, they're already set up at that age. Then they've got the media who are hopping right on that and getting in the media, and they're on the internet, they're on all these things. So unless you're really grounded, have a great relationship with your kids, which is super important. I've learned that more and more over the last, couple of years. That's the key to it to start with, because if you don't have that to start with, you're going to lose the kids. And once you lose your kids to the mainstream media,
well, look at the generation of your kids. This generation right now, they're totally have no moral values. They have no idea where they're going. It's just there. It's just they don't have no belief in God. They don't believe in anything. What they believe in is their smartphone. Okay, they pray to that. They pray to that every 5 minutes. Amen. Just walk down the street. Even Amen. We do. We're looking at our phone. It tells us what to do, where to go, what to think, how to think, when to think it.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm going to get a comment on the board here while you're talking in the middle here. Cindy Jones says we're thinking too much about politics and not enough about God, who blessed us with so much. That's right. That's right. And we lost. Once you lose God, man. Once you lose God, you're done.
Which started when we took prayer out of school. That was taking the Ten Commandments off the wall.
Well, you wanted to talk about some other things too, which I can't help but kind of touch on slightly here too already. We took prayer out in the schools in the 60s, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Well, what did we do in the 70s? 1973, anybody? Any guess? Roe v. Wade?
You're right. Abortion.
We've had...
It took one person to fight one abortion and change the whole planet. One person. One
person made the change. Yeah, that's right. They changed the whole thing.
Right.
Hey, Sergeant Francis is here. All right. Newsflash, he said. I think this is a challenge to something that you said earlier, Brian, so maybe you can respond to this. Newsflash, the left has moved much further toward insanity than when I was a boy.
I disagree. I think it's this exact same insanity. You
100%.
can see it going all the way back to the Communist Manifesto and beyond. They're always there. They're more open about it. But that's a tactic. That's not a strategy. That's not the principle. The principle's always been there. It's always been under the surface. They've always talked about it, just not as openly. Go back and read Saul Alinsky. Anything that he wrote. His famous book, which escapes me at the moment. Rules for Radicals.
Radicals, yeah.
Rules for Radicals.
It goes back even further than that.
It goes back far beyond that. It's the same thing. They have the same thing they do over and over and over again. It's our reaction to it, and it's our inability to offer a good option to the kids out there versus what they already have. Everything else is coming easy to them because we're not really giving them a clear enough option.
No, I would say though that in America, it's much more, the principles are the same. The evil is the same, but it's much more out of control than it was, obviously 40 years ago.
It's louder.
It's definitely
that's all
louder.
That's different. It's louder. You can see it more because we have more ways of seeing it.
That's true.
You've got social media, you've got YouTube, you got all these different things.
Which is controlled, right?
But it's always been there. For anybody that was looking and watching, you would have noticed it years ago. A lot of us are waking up to it in the moment, and so that's fine. But it doesn't mean it wasn't there. This has always been there.
Always.
The difference
100%.
is how we respond to it.
Well,
and we weren't responding to it back in the 60s and 70s, and we're not responding as well as we should now. It gets stronger, but there are decent people out there who are getting stronger too. And we are making moves. And it's
there are people waking up. And I will agree that human nature has not changed. I think hell has opened up in a certain way. But, I was looking at somebody, a video on the Holocaust. If you know what last century the communists were doing, absolutely horrific mass murder going on in Russia, in China, Cuba with their political prisoners. You know, the list goes on, right? People just liquidated what Hitler did with the Jews, millions of people. And so the way that man has treated, I was reading a book the other day and showing all of the like mass murder that's been going on. This stuff has been going on. It certainly started in the last century. It just kind of all opened up. And this stuff has been going on in horrific ways. What we have here, I think, is a sheltering up until now in America. We haven't had war directly. We haven't really had anything serious since the Great Depression.
Because we had God behind us. We supported the flag. Okay, we had morals. All that's been stripped away. So what do you have left when you strip it away? Satan just runs right over us. Yeah. And we have our things and our personal items that we don't want to give up. We conservatives, we do not. We'll talk a big game until it gets right to our front door, to our backyard. Then we close the door and go back and sit on our couch, watch our smart TVs, and Google and what we want to do, and talk a big game on the couch. There's very few people that get out there and risk their life and their freedom to speak the truth. You can't get, that's why Twitter is big news to everybody, because we want to see what the big change is going to be. I'm not looking, I'm not that excited. Okay, he bought it, fine. I want to see what he does. If he does just the opposite of what liberals did, then we're no different.
Well,
okay.
The idea we're kind of, to me, this is something I touched on before. I'm getting a lot of pushback on social media about this and so on, but I dealt with this last week. We're dealing with the same hero complex that we always do. We're waiting. We want to sit on our butts, the same thing we did when Trump was in power. We're going to sit on our butts and let the strong man do the lifting. And that just doesn't cut it. It's never worked. It never will work. Like in my state here, I'm in Florida, and people want to some degree, sit back and let Ron DeSantis, do what he's going to do. I got news for you. Ron DeSantis he's not a king. He cannot rule on his own. He needs help. He needs the people to do what they're going to do. And that's just a political thing anyway. That talks nothing about people in their homes. Trump was not in everyone's home looking at the way people raise their kids and what they did behind closed doors.
And with Trump and with DeSantis, trust me, the liberals have come so far now with their dirt. And when we allowed Trump to lose over this fake election, you can call it what you want. We allowed evil to get to a certain point. They're not about to turn around and let anybody else come in there and take their throne right now. Okay, we're even day by day allowing them to get away with stuff that the average treason, murder, money. We're sitting back saying it, telling, but we see it, but we're not doing any. If you think this mid-election is going to really change the flow, I got news for you. Okay, there'll be a few of them that win, but they're not going to change anything. The pattern has been set. They've already made the mold. They got everything where they want it. We know. And here's another thing, Biden. What family member, friend, uncle, aunt, cousins will allow a man? Would you allow your father to go up there and be a fool around the world? Would your children allow that? No, what's going on here? This is evil beyond evil. Okay?
You have to pick the right guy. You have to pick a compromised guy if you're in that position. You purposely pick a compromised guy to lead the people.
But when he's
let me say this, Robert, because you're saying a lot of great stuff. I'm going to do a little plug right now. If you guys don't see me on a certain platform, go to oldschoolus.com, okay, and I'll tell you where I am. I'm just throwing that out there.
Not a problem.
You never know in this world, because we live in a world where certain words get used, and the next thing you know, you're not on a platform.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Back to Biden, what I'm saying is he's an ill man. Everybody on the planet knows that he has dementia. I mean, just be honest, he's not well, but they will still prop him up in front of the screen just to get their agenda across. That's evil beyond imagination, okay? They're on his own wife, his own children, his own cousins, his uncles, his best friend.
Robert, listen. Once you get to a certain point, it's like if you have cancer. Once you get to a certain part of cancer, you can do all the cleanses you want. You can eat as well as you want. You can pray. Well, I don't want to say pray because there's always miracles. You can do a lot of stuff, and you may not live because the cancer has gotten so far into the body that it can't regenerate itself. I don't know if we're there yet, but it appears that we've gotten to a point beyond the people's ability, unless people really wake up, and we're trying to, on some of these platforms, we're trying to get the word out. The more we wake up, and not just learning certain things, we're not just trying to get red pilled and we get the right information and we know the right things to say to each other and all that stuff. But we've got to have it in here, man. We've got to become, I hate this, to use the Gandhi stuff, but we've got to become these people. And the question is, are we?
Right. You got to shoot back. You got to shoot back.
What's that?
You got to shoot back. Right.
No,
you got to fight fire with fire.
No, you do. But if you read the Bible, you can't just fight back with force. It doesn't work. You have to have moral authority. God destroyed the Jews and Israelites because they fell away from him. Not because they weren't strong militarily anymore, but because they fell away from him and he put them under a curse, the same way it appears that he's done to America today. That's the way I see it.
So, go ahead, Brian.
Well, taking it from a spiritual side, I like what Glenn Beck's been saying, in the sense that he said, I heard him say that it's not about whose side God is on. It's about who's on God's side.
Well, that's
that's right. He's been using that quote.
Yeah.
And that really is an individual thing. It's not about a movement. It comes down to each one of us coming from that. And if we're on God's side, who's against us, and who's going to stop you? It's not about the tactics and the strategy at that point. It's about the principle of where we're coming from. If we're coming from the right place, we're going to do the right things and we're going to handle things properly, and they won't be able to stop anything that we do. It happens every time in history. You see when somebody comes out and you can tell they're coming from the right direction, that they're unstoppable.
I agree. I'm going to get to the comments, guys, in a minute here. I'm going to start reading some comments too. So thank you guys for that. I got to say for myself, what I've learned in the last maybe couple of years, I had to come clean in my life. You guys have read my blog. Some of you have, some haven't. I had to come clean in my life in various ways. Okay. I had to stop looking at other human beings and putting them in a position of over me, like there's some kind of God. There are no gods. There are one God. There's one Son, Jesus Christ. Okay, he's the mediator between God and us. There is nobody else. The rest of us are just peers. And I had to find that out for myself the hard way. And other people are having to find that out too. But once I started to find that out and got honest with myself, got honest with my family, started being real, I've had to be more real. I've been a conservative hypocrite most of my life. It defines who I've been on the right side of things technically since I was probably 24, 25 is when I changed over to become like a conservative Republican. But even after I changed that, I was still a hypocrite. And I lived years as a hypocrite. You can't be a hypocrite and get anywhere in your life or expect God to help you.
Well, you're not saying anything that every man in the Bible had to experience. Okay, if you look at all the men in the Bible, they committed adultery, murder, and all those things too until they found out who God was and they became strong in that.
But you know what, Robert? One thing: some people don't come back from that. They go into denial. Right. They won't admit to anything. They won't admit to themselves. They won't admit to others. And they put on a front, and that's what I was doing. There's no way God can help you if you put a front on.
And that's how Satan works. He has you looking in one direction while he's working in the other.
Yeah.
Just like
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just Robert. Like this Supreme Court thing. Okay. I have no doubt what it's getting ready to do. It's going to have people fighting each other. It's going to be on the front page on everything. Oh, yeah. And under the scenes, you watch to see if something else is going to happen. And with Biden being so sick, who's next in line? It ain't gonna get no better. And guess who's the third in line? It ain't gonna get no better. And trust me, they're working that plan out to a T, while we'll be sitting there arguing, about Roe v. Wade, and we've already killed how many? 63 million babies, and now we're so worried. Where were we when it was on the 10 million babies? Okay, we're talking about 60 million babies.
You know what, Robert? I agree, but on the other hand, all we got is here. So whatever we can do right now, if we can end abortion as a federal matter, I know that they leaked it and all that stuff for their own purposes. I get that. But let's just say that they're serious about doing it and they actually have the stones for a change. The Supreme Court, they didn't have the stones in their election situation. If they have the stones to actually do something about abortion for once and actually gets changed and we bring it back to the states, that's a lot less killing of innocent babies, man. That is, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the way the devil works and he gets us looking at this and that. I get that. You're right about that. But just taking the issue by itself, I'll be quite happy to see Roe v. Wade overturned. Quite happy.
I'll just wait and see what happens because, they'll probably come up with ways that, well, you can't have abortion, on Monday, but you can do it on Tuesday, or, you can't have it on Sunday. There's some kind of way.
Yeah, this isn't the end of any fight. This is not the end. This is the beginning. This is the beginning. If this opens up and goes the way that it looks like it might, and they actually overturn Roe v. Wade, if they do that, that's the beginning of the debate that has been monopolized since before I was born.
Yeah,
right.
I was born into a world that said not only can you not talk about abortion, Roe v. Wade will always be the law of the land, so don't even try to fight it. This is what conservatives were telling me.
Yes.
They don't even try because it's a losing issue. You're just going to lose. Yet if you look at any of the polls out there, anything out there, everything has been leaning more and more and more pro-life.
I agree.
Conservatives are winning on a lot of levels. The problem is we don't take the ball and keep running offense. Earlier, Mike Jones said in the comments there about playing defense. It's one of the main sins, but it comes from the attitude and the deep level of cowardice on the part of conservatives to not play offense. And this is the beginning of a chance for us to play offense on the abortion issue, and it needs to be taken state by state. And we don't sit there and debate till our heads fall off. Right. We got to just fix it, make it happen.
So I would say, and I'm doing this, hopefully you guys are doing stuff behind the scenes. I'm working in politics again. And some people don't like politics, but politics is, I said today I was mentioning this to my family. Politics is like war without bullets. You may have a stage where you get to the revolution where you have to do something. A lot of people talk tough and they get angry and they say, "Oh, we're going to do something." The people that usually do that are angry and they really haven't done the steps necessary that our founding fathers did. They went step by step to try to avoid bloodshed. Anybody with conscience would try to avoid bloodshed and do everything they possibly could right before having to go to the next level. The angry person just jumps levels, is a coward, doesn't really stand up and do anything, and then jumps a bunch of levels and wants to get rough with people, and they're dangerous. I don't, you know what I mean?
We have to stop playing games on the physical realm.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're at. We're constantly playing games like I'm winning, I'm losing, I'm this, I'm that, and that's what this constant talk about the news of the day is. Look what the liberals did now. Oh, look how crazy
reaction.
It's all reaction, and all we got to do is say, okay, what do we know needs to happen?
Yes,
and we move forward and start having them react to us. Donald Trump did not do everything right. Across the board, I can go on for days on all the things I would do differently and how I would handle things. But one thing he knew how to do when he was on message on something, he took it, he ran with it, and he let them react to him.
Yeah.
When he was at his best, that's what he did. But all the greats throughout history, you'd go back, Ronald Reagan, any of them, when they were at their best, they moved, they took action, and they let the other side react and freak out.
Well, I agree. And we need to do forums like this, of course. And we also need to do private forums. We get behind the scenes and talk. Some things we can't say. Anybody, can't say everything they want to say in a public forum. So you get together with your friends. We have technology now. I would recommend people do that. There are systems like Jitsi that people can use. They can get on and it's like Zoom, except it's not as corrupt, let's say. It's not owned by the Chinese, right? So anyway, people need to start talking, but mostly come back to God. If you don't come back to God, you can talk.
That's the most important thing right there. We need to come back to Jesus. We need to put morals back into school. We need to put the 10 Commandments back on the wall. Okay, we need to start fighting that.
Put them back in here. Put them back in here.
Put our statues back on. Erect them back up. Okay, get people, start training our children that there is God. There's a bigger power than over us. Okay, He made the universe. Quit relying on man and government. Okay, because God created government. Okay, and that's our problem. We have a society now that really doesn't believe in God. We keep it in our bedrooms now. We don't go out and say what we believe because we're scared we're going to lose our things, our stuff. And that's how Satan works. Okay.
Barbara, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. If we are scared to say what we believe, then we really don't have God to begin with. Nobody who really has God is going to be scared to say what they believe.
But there's also, I mean, to take the middle ground on this, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you just go out there and preach on the street corner.
No,
there's a time and place, and you got to realize that just because someone's voting one way today, and they're voting completely wrong from your perspective, doesn't mean that they can't vote completely the other direction tomorrow. The ignorance is higher than I've ever seen it when it comes to people who are actually voting. But most of those people, you can talk to them. You can actually reach some of these people, but you got to take your time. And you got to be patient, and it's one person at a time.
I am, but I'm just saying. Let me just make my point real quick. My only point is, whatever we do, it can't be out of fear. If we have God with us, we'll be bold, and we'll have enough wisdom. Solomon had a lot of wisdom. The greats in the Bible had a lot of wisdom. You have enough wisdom to know when to talk and when not to, when to. Paul talked about how to speak to people or differently. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? You're not going to be an idiot about stuff. I've been an idiot before in the past times. Just, I thought I had the truth and I went around and broadcasted like an idiot. That didn't work. But as I'm getting older and learning more, I realized, hey, you get some wisdom. You understand how to live better. I'll let you get in here real quick, Robert, if you need to. I want to get to comments. I'm way overdue on comments.
Go ahead with the comments.
Okay, so let me see. Fabian had said much earlier. He said, kind of agreeing with you here, Brian, what you mentioned. The number one tool is not being irritated by the insanity. That's exactly what you had said. I agree 100%. Not being irritated is a form of love, right? If you are irritated, you are getting angry with the person over here and you're reacting to them. The same thing you've been talking about. We've got to get beyond that. A lot of Christians, unfortunately, are still in the kindergarten era as far as understanding not to get irritated, because Saul Alinsky was running his game against all sorts of people, Christians and non-Christians, but he knew how to get people mad, and we need to do the same. Let me go on to some other comments here. By the way, there's a website that I like where they make fun of liberals sometimes. They say things that aren't really true, but they act as if they're true. I can't remember the name of that site. You know what I'm talking about.
Babylon Bee?
Yeah. I enjoy them. I like.
Oh, yeah.
They took the Saul Alinsky principle of laughing at the other side. And you know what? Everybody hates to be laughed at. Most people have big egos, and you laugh at almost any of us, we hate it. And that's the way you get to people, is you laugh at them. And if you've overcome, you'll know you've overcome when you can be laughed at and you just say, you shrug your eyes, that's funny, or you laugh yourself or whatever.
I'm watching.
I'm getting a lot of shots lately, so I'm having to learn to do that. Go, what's that, Robert?
I'm watching an old TV show. Shaka Zulu was a TV ministry.
Yes. And
instead of them sending an army to defeat Shaka Zulu, they just sent in a couple of men, white men, to come in there and separate them. Called division. And that's a lot what was going on in here in America. We used to be a very powerful country, and we all was on the same accord. But now, you walk down the street and the average person doesn't agree. You'd hate to even bring it up. They'll go off on you, Yes. And if you wear your MAGA hat, you better dodge and duck. You don't know who's going to be liking you. And they own the media, social network, everywhere you go. Even Newsmax, bless their hearts, they're trying to do the best they can. But even there, they'll bend the curve a little bit. Even OAN, So
yes, you're right. But you got me on a point now. You got like a little peeve of mine too. This is one of my soapbox things, and I won't go into a long one here. Promise. My family's always on me for this stuff. We in general also like to complain about Fox, OAN, whatever. Hey man, do your own thing. We're doing that now, right? We don't see the truth out there. We're starting our own stuff. Robert's working on stuff. Brian's doing stuff. And I hope you guys are out there doing stuff, because we can't just get mad at everybody who's not doing what we don't like. The conservative people, for all the wisdom we supposedly have been a major disappointment. That's why I say there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. There's not a faking going on. Because if you have real power, then you show it. If you have God is with you, then that shows somehow. And if it isn't showing, start looking at the man or woman in the mirror. That's what I say.
But this show is broadcast on YouTube, correct?
Yes.
So we need that media outlet for us to come forth. So there's a bit of control that they have over this, because we say something that messes up their agenda, they'll cut us right off, like that big V word that you can't say.
Well,
okay.
Yes,
and
but we have to be willing to use other platforms if we have to.
Well, we're trying. We're trying. I mean, Trump is trying to come up with his own platform.
And we have,
but we are addicted to these social medias. Okay, just the fact that you would say, "Well, they cut me off for a week. I can't wait to get back on. I got one more day. I got 30 more seconds. I can get back on YouTube again." Yeah. That's an addiction. Yeah. Okay, why do we need to get on there so bad? Because that's the way.
Well, let me answer that. One reason is addiction, but the other reason is a practical reason. A lot of people are there. You to some extent, you got to go where the people are, right?
That's true, but I see people whining. I mean, Twitter. I mean, they get upset. You know, they cut me off for 3 days. How dare them? And you know, and I'm thinking about what's the point? What do you all you're going to talk about is the sun shining over the, you know, we got nice wind, or talk about your grandkids. It's like TikTok, and this is me. And when I first started getting on TikTok, I was taking my smartphone and I'll sit there and go, and I might do 1,000 flip up. Wow. I'll be there before I know it's 2 hours. What is the addiction there? Just that information they feed into your head. Yeah. Okay? Take us further away from God. And that's all it's doing.
And what you're saying, so it happens to us. We have to be watching ourselves.
Exactly.
I mean, it's got to start with us. Anybody listening to this, it's got to start with you. There is no America by just going in looking at somebody else. This is
God will have your back if you just take the first foot forward. Okay, that's in the Bible, all of them.
I agree. Mike Jones, I think he said this earlier. Yes, if you're always complaining, you're on defense. It's a position of weakness. Yeah, you're acting. Yeah. You're acting. You're not reacting. Exactly. So this is the game, and this is what we. Brian said conservatives fear cancel culture for sure. And again, if you're fearing something, what's our problem? You've got to start looking at yourself at some point, you know. And if you're fearing something, I'm, you know, anybody who's believing as we do should be involved. Maybe a church, if you can find the right church, good luck with that. Maybe political. I think certainly political, honestly. Very important for people to be involved in that. But when you're involved in that, you see people who are flawed human beings like we are, and there's a lot of opportunity to love the person, you know, to educate them when possible, to be patient with them, and to kind of bring the whole thing up, because we can help elevate politics out of the just back and forth nonsense and kind of bring it back to statesmanship instead of just politicians kind of thing.
Well, one other thing, I think this pandemic, what it sold to me was fear. That was all it sold. Because even today, when everything is kind of mild, I see my people. That's like black people. I'm talking about you. But when I go into the store, if I count 10 black people, 8 of them got a mask on.
Yeah.
And I'm walking by and I'm looking at them real crazy. And they know I'm looking at them. I want to say, what the heck? Or you got that stupid mask on, which is a beautiful day. I want to say that. And it's ridiculous. And that's the culture that's been fed to them. And we've been pounded into it. We've been conditioned over and over and over and over and over again. And we need to put that fear away, because if we're Christians and we know there's a God, we really have nothing to worry about. because God will have your back. And you might get someone get bumped and slapped a little bit. Okay, Jesus got hung on the cross.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. By the way, this is the little
Right.
part they don't tell you in your average feel good church.
Right, you might get hurt. Yes,
there's a consequence sometimes. But the good thing is they can't kill your soul. And
that's the point. You don't want to die with your soul.
Christianity was always about the soul in the old days. Now that we've forgotten about this life and whatever happens after this life, it was always about the whole eternity. But now a lot of people don't believe in God, or they're Christians and they only talk about what's going on here, and it becomes just this thing right now, and everybody's like worried about right now. But if you believe in the concept of the soul like they used to, and hopefully we'll do again, you won't have that kind of fear. Look at the stories of old. Look at the Maccabees. Well, I don't know if everyone knows the Maccabees, but some people do. But anyway, let me get to more comments here. Martin was still, I guess he was bothered. I didn't see this a little earlier. He was saying the people you were mentioning earlier, Brian, were considered radicals. Now they are the mainstream.
Well, if you're talking political parties, that's absolutely true. The Democratic Party has become more liberal. What I was talking is political philosophies. The liberals have always been there. They're more out in the open, and they're running the party now. They have been for a little while now, but they've always been causing issues. They've always been causing trouble. They caused trouble in that party and took it over, and now they're causing trouble here and around the world. It isn't going to change. They're not going away. This isn't going to be solved. It's a lifetime of learning how to handle it and moving forward despite them. They're not as powerful as we give them credit.
They're not
powerful at all. We just allowed them to take over us.
They're not at all. All right, I'm going to give you guys a challenging thing here. This is from Mr. Sandy LaFontaine, who said a little earlier, I'm trying to catch up with your comments, guys. A lot of comments. Thank you for all the comments, guys. Great stuff. By the way, we have super chats, and I don't know how long I'll be on YouTube, but for now, they have now given me the ability to get super thanks, which is like a donation thing. So I'm going to make my little 15-second donation pitch. Anybody who wants to do that, thank you. Help support old school and what we're doing here and trying to get the truth out and building up the old school media center here, let's call it. Any donations that we get. So thank you for that. Anyway, okay, let me give you guys a challenge here. Look, Mr. Sandy LaFontaine. He says, any conservative dad who doesn't make sure his kids have completed mastering a trade, not started an apprenticeship, by 16 is a lame-ass dad. I guess he's talking to me here. He's probably talking to a lot of people. He probably might be talking to, he's talking to a lot of people there. Most conservatives are weak. I don't need to say the A word, right, to everybody, right? Most conservatives are weak A hypocrites who talk. So is he right that a kid should have a trade mastered by the age of 16?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The dad should be bringing up his son or daughter in a logical way to learn to use their hands, learn how to fend for themselves from the diaper on out. Okay. Don't be giving them nothing. If you go get something, you can work for it. You cut the grass. If you want some money, go work for it. Get you a job. Learn a trade, because colleges today don't learn you anything. Just
they don't teach nothing.
Sink a lot of liberal crap in your head. Okay.
The trades pay well.
Absolutely.
They pay very well.
100%. I never went to college. I just worked with my hands.
I know. You know what?
My dad had me building digging holes, lifting roots out of the ground to show how to work hard. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's why our kids. But what we do now, we give them a laptop, an iPad, and a smartphone, and that's it. Then we go in the bedroom and watch TV.
Hey, I've been guilty of a lot of stuff myself. I grew up not learning anything really. My dad was a plumber, but I never learned his trade. He taught it to my older brother. I rebelled and didn't learn the trade. See, I went off in the other direction, and it wasn't until much later in life that I even played around with physical, trade stuff at all. But I do know that, working with my son, and believe me, I wasn't the best dad for a long, long time. And that you still face the reverberations of that. But when we were selling a house in another state before we moved, and we needed to kind of fix it up and do some stuff to get it ready for sale. I was doing some fix-ups, and he started helping me. That was one of the best times we had. Just doing fix-up, learning little stuff on the fly, having father-son stuff. We need to do more of it, actually. We've kind of fallen away from it a little bit.
You'll remember that forever, man.
Yeah,
You
and we
will remember that
definitely
forever.
need to bring that back more and more. So thank you for that, Mr. Sandy LaFontaine. Did you want to make a point on that, Brent?
Yeah, I agree with the general sense of it. You know, you can split hairs in terms of whether it's at 16 or what exactly a trade is it just physical labor or what have you? Because I understand that too. I mean, I grew up in the FFA. I grew up working on Future Farmers of America. I grew up in working on a cattle ranch. But I think more importantly than anything, what I was given both from my parents and grandparents is the concept, I guess you could say it's a spiritual background. It wasn't given to me in the sense of being religious, but it's a spiritual belief that you can do anything if you set your mind to it. I mean, that's also a generic way of saying it, but that idea of go get them, you go figure it out, go make it happen. Yeah, it's going to hurt. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you can figure things out. That attitude isn't being passed on because a lot of people don't have it to begin with.
Yes. You can't pass on what you don't have. And if you don't have it, you better learn it. And that's what I've had to do. I've had to play catch up. I mean, I'm in my 60s now, man. So I've been catching up. I was off the reservation, you know, when I got out of high school, I couldn't wait to go off and just sin. You know?
Yeah, but you're on the reservation now, Patrick. Look what you're doing now. You're getting out with old school. I remember when you first started old school and it was like 1 or 2. Now you're getting a full barrage. You got 3 guests. You had 4 guests, and you had that one guy that was fantastic. So don't sell yourself short. We all have to go. We all have to go down that road, and we all have a street named after us. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to. So
yeah, you're right about that. No, you're right about that. No, my life is great right now. I mean, my life is great. My family, we have our fights still, but it gets better all the time. I become better through God's grace every day. Hopefully you guys are too, but I'm noticing that I don't react as much. Everything becomes a little bit better all the time. Thank God.
I always want to know that phrase when they say God knows the heart. And when you realize whatever you see on your surface, God already knows. Sometimes we see a guy, look at that terrible person, but that God knows his heart, and you know, and he knows what that person can be. And we judge too much on the surface, and we don't, you know, a hobo in the street. I remember when years back when there was my daughter was at a show, and there was a hobo right out the front door, laying on the ground, and my wife didn't want the kids to look at him. And we happened to mention, well, where we can get something to eat? Hobo said, why don't you just go around the corner to chicken place, you know? And we said, wasted a whole hour trying to find something to eat because we didn't want to ask this hobo on the street, you know, where we can go get something to eat. He had the answer right there.
Right.
We judged him.
Right.
Okay. You see, and we missed out on lunch.
That's you can do a whole show on that one. Hey, yeah, very good. I'm going to, just because we're getting towards the end of the hour, and I'm trying to keep it fairly close to an hour here, I'm going to move a little quicker, try to get the comments here. I'm going to challenge you guys again because I'm hearing from Sergeant Francis and Fabian again, and they're saying we're contradicting. You guys are contradicting yourself. The left hasn't changed, but the right has. And Fabian jumped in and said, yes, the right has gotten weaker, Martin, less spiritual. I agree with that. What is your take on that, Brian?
It's all a matter of degrees. I mean, it's very much about relativity. I'm saying that the left's tactics and how that their overall where they're coming from is exactly the same it's always been. They're very predictable in their unpredictability. Their game plan is the same game plan it's always been. You could read all the old books and they're doing the same things that they've always done, and they've got the same process for doing it. That's what I was saying about the left. The right, the conservative movement is a movement of individuals. It's very tough to lump us all together because we're it's like herding cats. We're all going in different directions anyways.
We're individualists.
Yeah,
Start
and
with-
there
not
are
strong enough.
conservatives and individuals that are better than any. I believe there are better conservatives walking the planet now than ever have. And I think there's also worse conservatives now and
I agree.
weak conservatives.
Yes.
It's all in how you label and how you look at it. But I think we're in the best of times and the worst of times at the same time. I think evil
this
is
is a
getting
great time to
stronger
be living. Right.
and
This is a
good
very
people are
good time to
getting
be-
better.
Okay.
But what Brian is saying is that the liberals and evil has never changed. We've just always kept it succumb. We kept them back. Okay. Well, they done weakened our wall, and now we've allowed them in.
There you
Okay. Because they separated us, like we're like you said, we're conservatives as a one. We're not as a group now.
Yeah.
You know, to fight back. Okay. And we have the tools to fight back. We just need to drop the fear and
Hey,
do it.
God will do
What do we got
that.
to lose? We're losing planet now. What do we got to lose?
We're gonna, by the way, guys that watch this show, we're always gonna have some spiritual basis in this show. We're gonna talk about prayer, not every show, but we're gonna always keep a spiritual base, because without it, we're nothing. So we're gonna always keep that in. I pray every day, twice a day, morning and night. We've talked about how we pray. Some pray differently, that's fine, but do something. Do work with what you got. I
Do something, right? Do
have a link
something.
in the description to a guided meditation that I think works quite well, but not everyone's for that. That's fine. I'm not going to try to convince you, but it's definitely helping me day by day to become, I think, the person that I originally was. That's kind of what I think, being born again in a way. To me, that's a whole other subject, but I think in a way we're hopefully trying to become to bring the innocence back that we had originally. We're kind of like the factory reset. We're moving back towards the factory reset. I feel that coming every day personally.
We need to get back to God, basically.
But that is God. That is coming back to God.
We need to come back to Him. That's what He wants. What are y'all waiting on? Just come back.
Let me go real quick here. This all opens up a can of worms too, and maybe we'll do a whole show on that. I think we need to do a whole show on this, but I'm going to let this one out of the bag just for fun at the end of the show here. Fabian says Jesus and his army will be the answer. Okay. Now, and I've talked with Fabian about Revelation. He believes that we're in Revelation now, first part of Revelation, and I'm not necessarily going to say we're not. I mean, there's a lot of Robert. You probably may believe the same thing. We can probably do a whole show on are we in Revelation. And
we've been in Revelations for a while, but now we're right there at the last few chapters, my friend. Everything is coming right into place.
So the question is, I don't know what power we have. I do know that when we come back to God, we have power. We all agree on that. Are there still things that are just going to be in the works that are going to happen a certain way anyway? I really don't know. We may be in Revelation now. We might have to do a whole show on that. I'm just throwing that out for fun at the end here because he's talking about that a lot, and that's part of the thing here. And some people, but you know what? I got to say one thing. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Fabian, because some people are using Revelation as an excuse to stay on their butts, not do anything, wait for God to scoop them up, and they can just sit there and act weak and say, "Oh, I can't get involved in politics. I'm too good for politics." And they're going to let people like Joe Biden run us because they want to sit back.
Can you post up Mr. Sandy LaFontaine's latest comment there, because that's dead on.
Oh, really? Okay, hang on.
It's the last comment on the whole thing.
Is it? Okay, hang on.
At least it is on mine.
We have so many comments. Jesus.
Oh, well, it was the last comment.
Okay, here it is. Jesus and his army, let's say Jesus and his army, but through us, through our actions, thoughts, words, and especially spirit being.
Because that plays off of what Fabian had just said. And I think that's the most important part. You can sit around and you can wait for the rapture, but that doesn't solve anything. What you've got to see is what is your part in what's moving forward. I had a friend of mine one time, and I really trusted him, and he said out of nowhere, I really think we're in the end times. And that was shocking to me. This was right. This was right after 9/11. I was like, boy, end times. Yeah. But then I sat back and thought about it. The end times is a relative term. If you think about it, if we're 200 years away from the absolute end, or as the end, as far as Revelation says, Is that still the end times? Yeah, it's the end times. How about 100 years? How about 10 years? How about 5 days? It's all the end times. We're closer to the end. If you realize that, we don't know exactly the right day. And I know a lot of people have predictions about the exact day and time. We don't necessarily know that. So live your life, move from the inside out, and do what you're supposed to do on a daily basis. And don't worry about the rest. Jesus is there on the inside. He works through you.
Yeah, I get you. Fabian says he's not, he's motivated even more. I've never known Fabian to be unmotivated. So I'm not going to argue with that, with you on that, Fabian. I will say there are a lot of people who are unmotivated in typical churches out there. They are thinking the rapture is going to scoop them up and they ain't doing jack.
That's another trick of Satan to get you away from God.
It is. They're not doing jack to be salt and light on this earth now. And if you
you'll be fine. Everything will be fine. And God's going to take care of you. Just go home and cook your meals and don't worry about it. Don't say nothing to the guy that needs to know about Jesus. Just be quiet. Okay. Just go home. Look at your phone.
Right.
Look at your phone again, sir. That's all it is, a deception.
Ted says nobody knows the end will come, even Jesus. I know that will spark more answers from Fabian saying we do know the time, but not just the day. This is not a rapture show today, but maybe we'll just do a rapture one. We'll get people on talking about the rapture. It'll be fun.
We all know that, Fabian. We understand what that means. Okay?
Yeah. The point is, for the purposes of our conversation today, be the change that you want to see in the world. If God's working with you, he'll show you what to do. If we're in the rapture, if we're in something, we're in it. If he wants to pull you up, he'll pull you up. In the meantime, if you ain't been pulled up yet, be working down here until you get pulled up.
Say that to the people that are over in Ukraine that's losing their homes and dying and killing. I'm sure they're waiting on the rapture. Come on, rapture, please come tomorrow. Please come tomorrow. Okay? I'm sure they're waiting on it while they're being killed and slaughtered. Okay? Why wait on it? We need to do something now.
Yeah.
Okay? We need to fight back. We need to stand up for what's right. We need to bring morals back. Okay?
I agree. And in that way, I'm going to start winding up. So thank you guys. I can't get to everybody. There's no way I can get to everybody's comment. We got so many comments tonight. You guys, Robert Campbell and Brian Pombo, have been great. And I really enjoyed having you guys on. Robert, what is people want to reach you, Robert? What is your, how do they reach you?
Through rdtcmttsa@mail.com. That's R as in Robert, D as in Donna, T as in Tom, C as in Cat, M as in Mary, T as in Tom, T as in Tom, S as in Sam, A as in Apple @mail.com. Those are my reason why I got that email like that is because they're all my family, so I won't forget it.
So, one of these days he'll get maybe a
little.
But I put something up there so people can see it on there. BrianJPombo.com. If you want to talk to a guy, if you got a business, you got like starting a business out, and you want to find out how to operate it correctly, you want to get your vision down to where it makes sense to you, where you can make money with that vision and make sense of it and have a plan to go from point A to point whatever you need to go to make your business work. Brian is your man. And I've worked with him before. He's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable about business strategies, marketing. He's got YouTubes and stuff coming out every day. This guy never sleeps.
How about the gold and silver market? Are you good can you give good advice on that?
Yeah, buy more.
Yeah, thinking about doing that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's easy advice. I'm thinking of maybe keeping this the regular night to do this thing on Friday nights. So if people are okay with that, 6 o'clock West Coast, 9 o'clock Eastern is kind of a good time. I kind of like. What's that?
Can I give one other plug?
Oh yeah, please.
If you're interested in the political end of things and talking about what you can do to make a difference, if you've got an idea, or if you are looking for an idea on what to do to move forward, I've got a small group of people. We're meeting every once in a while, and it's just one of these things where we're throwing out some really bold concepts. It's called boldactionnetwork.com. It's just going to take you to a little Google form. Just fill that out, and I'll get in touch with you.
You know what?
Boldactionnetwork.com.
Great. And I love what you're doing with that. Brian has a lot of experience in politics. You've been like a campaign manager and different things behind the scenes. A lot of experience going way back in California days. I filled that out, by the way. I don't know if you saw it, but I filled it out myself the other day. And I would love to be involved in that as well. Also, I know other people, my friend David, I'm not going to give his last name right now, but he may come on in the future, but he's doing stuff with people and they're doing stuff on Zoom or Jitsi or whatever. And they're doing more stuff along the lines of practical stuff behind the scenes. People should be out there starting gardens in this day and age. I'm not trying to panic people, but it's obvious by the news that people need to be getting ready like our forefathers did in the Great Depression. Get water, canned goods, do the basics.
I've already started, yeah.
Get your skills up. Really, I mean, I just have to tell people that because you're dealing with people who are not incompetent, but evil at the top, and they're purposely putting us into certain situations that are causing shortages and all that is being done, obviously.
Well, the pandemic should have been a very good warning when you go in the store and you find a couple of cans on the shelf. Okay, that should have been a warning right there. For people. That could definitely happen again. Are you going to be ready for it, or are you going to hope this truck comes in next week with a can of beans?
That's right. Brian says, by the way, what about 2,000 Mules, which I was going to talk about? Thank you, Brian. I was just going to get to that. It's hard to keep on track here. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on, but 2,000 Mules, the one reason I didn't do the show tomorrow night, I did it tonight instead, which I might keep this night. I kind of like this night. Is because Dinesh D'Souza, it has the opening of his movie called 2,000 Mules. And that has to do with the last election. I don't know how much I can say on this channel, but it has to do with the last election and what happened in it and how these people were able to do what they did. And a lot of them were found and caught and tracked. This movie is all about that. And it's called 2,000 Mules. You can go to 2000mules.com. And I put that a link in the description down there as well. But that's tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's tomorrow, Saturday night. You go to 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Go to 2000mules.com. It's about $20. It's worth it for the cause, in my opinion. Dinesh D'Souza is a great filmmaker, in my opinion. And he understands, very smart guy, and he knows how to move the ball down the field. He's done a great movie on Obama. He did a great movie on somebody's whistling out there for me. Did a movie on Trump, and he's done another great movie here. So 2000mules.com. Here it is. 2000mules.com. Go there. Okay. I think that's about it. If you like what you're seeing here, let me know. If you want to see certain things talked about, great. If you have an idea for certain guests or whatever, let me know. We're planning on doing this probably same time next Friday night, it looks like. And subscribe. If you like this channel, subscribe to it, right? And if you like the content, subscribe and hit the bell icon so every time I do something new, you see it right away and you can get to it. Also, if you want to support Old School, find out what I'm doing on Old School, go to oldschoolus.com, oldschoolus.com, and you can go there and make a donation, a one-time donation or a donation on a monthly basis as well. That would help out. Even $5 a month would be very, very helpful. Guys, any last words before we, let me get you out of comments there, Mind Over Energy. Sorry about that. Any last comments, guys, before we hit the road?
None of this is going to work until we drop the fear and get back to God. And God will direct us in the way we need to go. Just be yourself, but just drop this fear. This fear is killing us. Anybody that takes that advice and does it, it will work. It'll work. Well, right now, if somebody does that, you're at home, it will work. Yeah. I've seen it happen. Brian, any last words? And if you think you're not scared, watch the anger. Because that'll be just as bad. It's the fight or flight response that's messing you up. Quit being scared and quit going on a rampage. Yeah. Back off and chill out and pay attention to what matters most. I agree. Exactly. The only thing I would say add to that is watch your judgment of yourself and other people. It's so easy. We don't think of ourselves as getting angry, but we get angry because we judge. We judge other people. We think we're better. We think we're worse. We think we're something. And we're looking at them and we're not looking at ourselves. So keep your eye on the ball and everything
we'll be fine. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being with us today, and continue your comments. What's that?
I said, nice meeting Mr. Pombo.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you, Robert.
A great panel tonight, guys. Robert and Brian. Thanks so much for being on again, guys. And we'll see you guys next time. All right.